Most of the plants sitting in American garden centers right now will be dead in your containers by August. Not because you did anything wrong, because nobody ever told you which ones actually survive. The plants getting most of the shelf space are engineered to look beautiful on the day you buy them. After that, you're on your own. These 20 perennials come back every single year. They handle drought, neglect, hard freezes, and summer heat. A few of them actively look better the less you touch them. And one, you will know which one when we get there, has been surviving conditions harder than anything in your garden for thousands of years without any help from humans at all. Let's get into it. If you are new here, hit subscribe right now and tap the bell. This is Nature Green Discoveries, and every single week we release practical, experience-based growing content that saves you money and stops you from bringing home plants that won't survive the season. It's free. It will always be free. Hit subscribe and let's keep going. And before we get into plant number 1, I want to ask you something. Drop in the comments right now. What U.S. state are you gardening in? Your Hosta hardiness zone changes everything about which of these plants will perform best for you. I will be calling out specific zones throughout this entire video. Find yours and pay attention. Plant number 1. Sedum. Every leaf on a sedum plant contains its own water supply. The tissue stores more the way a camel stores water. Held in reserve, drawn down slowly, never wasted. This is not a metaphor. It is the actual cellular structure of the plant, and it is why established sedum has been documented surviving 6 to 8 weeks of zero watering and bouncing back without permanent damage. Try that with anything else in your container garden and see what happens. Here is the counterintuitive truth about sedum that most gardeners never hear. Rich, heavily fertilized soil is the enemy. Sedum planted in well-amended, nutrient-dense soil grows tall, floppy, and structurally weak. Sedum planted in lean, slightly poor soil stays compact, colorful, and architecturally strong all season. Stop fertilizing it entirely. The plant rewards your neglect with better form, better color, and better structure every single season. For varieties, Autumn Fire produces deep copper-pink flower clusters from September through November and holds itself upright without flopping. Dragon's Blood grows low with vivid red foliage that intensifies dramatically as fall temperatures drop. Matrona is tall and architectural with burgundy stems and dusty pink blooms that look like someone designed them professionally, without any effort from you. In Hosta zones 3 through 9, that covers Maine, the entire Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, the South, and most of the mountain states, sedum grows as a cold, hardy perennial that handles hard freezes without protection. In zones 9 and 10, give it afternoon shade during peak summer heat, and it performs just as reliably. Water sedum deeply once when you first plant it, then cut back to once every 2 to 3 weeks through summer. When temperatures drop in fall, stop watering entirely. The fall color display it produces will be the best thing in your entire container garden. Plant number 2. Lavender. Lavender evolved on rocky Mediterranean hillsides with almost no soil nutrition and near zero moisture retention. Moisture-retaining potting soil is lavender's primary killer in American gardens. Most people plant it in exactly the wrong medium and then wonder why it dies. The soil they automatically reach for is what finishes the plant. Here is the fix, and it is simple. Mix your standard potting mix with 1/3 coarse perlite or horticultural grit before planting. Use containers with a minimum of 3 drainage holes and never place saucers underneath. That single adjustment makes lavender nearly bulletproof in containers. For varieties, Hidcote is deep purple, compact, and the most cold-hardy English variety available, surviving reliably down to zone 5. If you are in the South or Gulf Coast states, Fanal is your variety. It handles heat and humidity better than any other lavender and performs consistently across zones 6 through 9. If fragrance is your priority, Grosso carries a higher essential oil concentration than any other variety and blooms continuously from June through August. Never fertilize lavender in containers. Not once, all season. Rich nutrients produce soft, weak growth with diminished fragrance. The essential oil concentration, which creates both the scent and the natural insect-repelling properties, actually increases when the plant is slightly hungry. Neglect is not just acceptable with lavender, it is the correct technique. Move your lavender container to exactly where you sit outside. On warm evenings, brush the foliage as you walk past. The oils release immediately. You have a fragrant, mosquito-repelling personal space that costs $3 in a 5-gallon pot. Plant number 3. Russian sage. Once Russian sage establishes its root system, it blooms continuously from July through October. 4 straight months of blue-purple flowers on silver-white stems. Most flowering perennials give you 4 to 6 weeks of color. Russian sage gives you 4 months. Container gardening. That is the difference between a plant that earns its space and one that just occupies it. No pest pressure. Deer avoid it completely. The aromatic foliage repels insects naturally. And even after blooming ends, the silver architectural stem structure provides genuine winter interest when every other container on your street looks empty and forgotten. In zones 4 through 9, Russian sage requires exactly 1 maintenance task per year. Cut it back to 6 inches in late February or early March. That is it. 30 seconds of work. In return, it comes back fuller and more floriferous than the season before. That exchange is almost unreasonably fair. One specific thing that most gardening content never mentions: Russian sage actually looks better in a container than it does in the ground. The contained root system encourages more compact, upright growth. You are not compromising this plant by putting it in a pot. You are improving it. Plant number 4. Hens and chicks. This is the only container plant on this list that actively tries to give you more plants without being asked. The mother rosette, called the hen, continuously produces smaller rosettes, called chicks, around its outer edge. Each chick is a genetically complete, fully independent plant. You can separate it with your fingers, drop it into a fresh container with minimal soil, and it establishes without any special treatment. The mother hen blooms once, after several years, then dies. But by that point, she has produced enough chicks to fill multiple containers several times over. The plant replaces itself and expands your collection simultaneously. For varieties, Cobweb hens and chicks is covered in fine white threads across each rosette that look exactly like delicate spider webs. Red beauty transitions from green to deep burgundy as temperatures drop in fall. Pacific blue ice produces blue-gray rosettes that look almost artificial. Hardy in Hosta zones 3 through 8, the overwhelming majority of the continental United States. These plants evolved in alpine environments, the Swiss Alps, the Carpathian Mountains, exposed rocky ridges at high elevation with scorching summers, bitter winters, and almost no soil. Your container garden, even a neglected one, is genuinely luxurious by comparison. They thrive in containers as shallow as 4 inches deep, making them ideal for windowsill gardens, wall planters, and small balconies. The difference between hens that multiply abundantly and hens that produce almost nothing comes down to one thing: container size and drainage. A hen in a cramped, poorly draining pot puts all her energy into survival. A hen in a well-draining container with room to spread puts her energy into reproduction. Plant number 5, catmint. Walker's Low. This plant blooms for 6 months straight in American containers. 6 months. Most annuals cannot manage that. And catmint comes back every single year. From May through October, Walker's Low produces continuous clouds of blue-purple flowers on arching stems with gray-green aromatic foliage. Butterflies are strongly attracted. You will have visible wildlife activity around your containers all summer without planting anything specifically for that purpose. When the first flush of flowers looks tired in July, cut the entire plant back by half. It looks severe for about 10 days. Then it comes back with a second flush that is often heavier than the first. 2 complete bloom cycles from one plant in a single season. Most gardeners skip this cut and lose 6 to 8 weeks of color every summer without understanding why their catmint underperformed. In zones 3 through 8, Walker's Low is fully cold hardy and needs water only once weekly once established, even during peak summer heat. Compare it directly to petunias, the most commonly purchased container plant in America. Petunias need deadheading every few days, weekly fertilizing, and complete replacement every single year. Catmint needs 1 trim per season, no fertilizer, and comes back stronger every spring for years. The only reason more Americans are not growing catmint is that garden centers make significantly more money selling you petunias annually. Plant number 6, Hosta. Sum and substance, hostas are more beautiful in containers than in ground plantings. Not equally beautiful, more beautiful. And the reason is specific. Containers eliminate slugs, the primary destroyer of hosta foliage in the ground. Containers eliminate drainage problems. Hostas rot in poorly draining soil but thrive in a well-managed container mix. And containers give you portability, so you move them to your best display position in summer and to a protected spot before hard freeze in fall. Sum and Substance produces enormous chartreuse gold leaves up to 18 inches across that glow in shade like they are lit from the inside. Halcyon has powder blue foliage that is naturally slug-resistant and stays clean all season without any intervention. Patriot has deep green leaves with crisp white margins that look hand-painted. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. In zones 3 through 5, move containers against a protected wall or into an unheated garage before hard freeze. In zones 8 and 9, morning sun only. Afternoon shade is essential for keeping foliage clean through summer heat. A hosta in a well-managed container does not need to be replaced ever. It divides naturally every few years. You separate it into 2 or 3 plants, move them into fresh containers with fresh soil, and your collection expands at zero cost. That is the mathematics of perennial gardening that annual gardeners never get to experience. Plant number 7, Coral Bells. Heuchera is available in burgundy, silver, lime green, caramel, orange, and near black. More color range than most flowering plants. And that color is present from the moment the plant breaks dormancy in spring until hard freeze in fall, or year-round in zones 7 through 9 where it stays evergreen. You are not waiting for bloom season. You have color from day one. Palace Purple produces deep burgundy leaves that appear almost black in certain light, one of the most dramatic foliage effects available in container gardening. Lime Rickey is electric chartreuse that illuminates shady corners the way no other plant can. Caramel produces warm amber orange tones that shift throughout the season, looking genuinely different every month from April through October. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. Most people place Heuchera in deep shade and then wonder why the color fades. Heuchera produces its most intense foliage color in bright indirect light or 2 to 3 hours of gentle morning sun. Move your Heuchera containers to where they catch morning light and watch the color intensity change within 2 weeks. That one adjustment makes more difference than any fertilizer or soil amendment you could apply. Plant number 8, Astilbe. When people see Astilbe in bloom, they assume it is difficult. It produces feathery plumes that look like something from a professional florist arrangement, and that level of beauty makes people assume a corresponding level of effort. It does not. And in containers, Astilbe performs better than it does in any ground planting you will ever see. In the ground, Astilbe is entirely dependent on whatever moisture the surrounding soil holds. In a dry summer, it struggles. Plumes come in smaller, bloom period shortens. In a container, you control exactly how much water the plant receives. That control produces bigger plumes, longer bloom periods, and cleaner foliage. The container is not a compromise. It is an upgrade. Bridal Veil produces pure white plumes that glow in shade with an elegance that stops conversations mid-sentence. Fanal has deep red flowers rising above dark bronze foliage, one of the most dramatic color combinations available in shade container gardening. Sprite is compact, shell pink, perfect for smaller containers, and has won more awards than almost any other Astilbe variety in American horticulture. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. After blooming ends, do not cut the spent plumes immediately. Left standing through fall, they transition to a warm russet brown that provides genuine container interest into November. Plant number 9, Japanese Painted Fern. This fern makes people stop walking and ask what it is every single time. The silver and burgundy coloring looks like someone painted each frond individually by hand. It is completely natural. It is completely effortless to grow. And it does something in a shady container arrangement that no other plant on this list can do. It adds a metallic, almost luminous quality that makes everything around it look more intentional. Burgundy lace has more pronounced purple tones than the standard variety and is the most dramatic option available to American gardeners. Ghost is nearly pure silver, almost luminous in deep shade, and one of the most visually striking foliage plants you can grow in a container, regardless of price point. The classic Pictum, silver gray with a burgundy midrib running down each frond, remains one of the best performing varieties after decades in American nurseries. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. One specific care point that most people get wrong: do not cut the old fronds back in fall. Leave them standing through winter. They provide natural insulation for the crown during hard freezes. Remove them in early spring only when you see fresh growth emerging from the base. That timing protects the plant through its most vulnerable period. If you are going to grow a fern in a container, grow one that earns its space every single day it sits on your porch. Plant number 10, Burgundy, Winter Glow. This is the plant that proves container gardening does not stop when summer ends. In spring, it produces clusters of pink flowers before most other perennials have even broken dormancy, often while there is still frost on the ground in the morning. Through summer, the thick, glossy leaves provide bold container structure. In fall, those leaves begin transitioning to deep burgundy red as temperatures drop. Through winter, the evergreen foliage holds its form and color while every other container around it looks empty and forgotten. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Tolerates deep shade, drought, poor soil, and temperatures well below zero once established. In zones 3 and 4, the winter color display is actually most dramatic. The coldest temperatures produce the deepest burgundy tones, and the contrast against snow or frost is genuinely spectacular. I have Burgundy containers that have not been fertilized once since planting, watered when remembered, which in winter means almost never, and have never been divided. Every single spring they flower before I have thought about opening any other container for the season. Right now, I want you to do one thing before we keep going. Hit the like button on this video. Not for me, because every like tells YouTube this content is worth putting in front of other gardeners across America who are spending money every spring on plants that die by July. Your one tap puts this information in front of someone who needs it. That is worth 1 second of your time. And drop in the comments, which plant from this list are you most excited to try? I read every comment. Let me know. Plant number 11, Black-Eyed Susan, Rudbeckia. This plant blooms from July through October, attracts goldfinches directly to your containers, and gets more floriferous every year it grows. It requires almost nothing from you after the first season. One mature Black-Eyed Susan produces between 80 and 20 simultaneous blooms at peak flowering, not over the course of the season at one time. The mass of golden yellow against dark centers creates a color impact that is almost impossible to replicate with any other single plant at the same price point. Goldsturm is the benchmark variety, award-winning, reliable, compact enough for containers, blooming continuously from July through September. Prairie Sun has yellow petals with green centers instead of dark, giving a fresher, more contemporary look. Cherry Brandy produces unusual copper-orange tones that set it completely apart from every other yellow-flowering perennial in your lineup. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. The performance fact most people miss. Black-Eyed Susan performs better in its second and third year than it does as a new planting. The root system strengthens over winter and produces more flowering stems each successive season. You are not just buying a plant. You are making a compounding investment in your container garden. Leave the seed head standing through fall and winter. Goldfinches, chickadees, and house finches feed on them actively from October through February. Your container becomes a wildlife feeding station that costs nothing to operate. Plant number 12, Lamb's Ear Stachys. This is the plant that gets more beautiful the less you do to it. And I want you to understand exactly why, because the science behind it is genuinely fascinating. Lamb's ear originates from rocky, sun-baked hillsides in Turkey and Iran. The leaves are covered in dense silver-white hairs. Those hairs are not decorative. They are a survival system. They reflect intense sunlight to prevent the leaf from overheating. They trap a thin layer of dry air against the leaf surface to slow moisture loss. When you overwater lamb's ear, those hairs flatten, trap moisture instead of air, and the plant rots from the outside in. When you underwater it, the hairs stay upright, stay silver, and the plant becomes more striking with every week of drought. Neglect is not a mistake with this plant. It is the correct growing technique. Big Ears produces leaves up to 6 inches long, the most dramatic variety for container display, and the one that generates the most reactions from visitors. Helen von Stein rarely produces flowers, meaning all plant energy goes directly into producing the silver foliage. Silky Fleece is smaller and more compact, perfect for mixed arrangements where you need a silver accent without a dominant presence. Hardy in zones 4 through 8. In zones 9 and 10, provide afternoon shade. Put lamb's ear next to almost any other container plant, and it does something none of them can do on their own. It invites touch. People reach out and brush it without thinking. That tactile quality combined with the silver color makes it one of the most commented on plants in any container garden. Plant number 13. Hemerocallis. Each daylily flower lasts exactly 1 day. Each plant produces 30 to 50 buds per stem. The math means continuous color for months from a plant that asks almost nothing from you after the first season. Stella de Oro is the gold standard for containers, compact, reblooming from spring through frost, universally reliable across American climates. Happy returns as pale yellow and slightly more heat-tolerant. Purple de Oro delivers the same compact, reliable growth in deep purple. Every color except true blue and pure white is available somewhere in this genus. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Evergreen varieties in zones 7 through 9 retain foliage through mild winters. Dormant varieties in zones 3 through 6 die back completely and return with full vigor every spring. The plant multiplies naturally every 3 to 4 years, dividing itself into additional plants you sever apart and move into fresh containers at zero cost. Drop in the comments what color daylily you have or want in your containers. The variety selection is genuinely overwhelming, and I want to know what American gardeners are actually drawn to most. Plant number 14, Ornamental Grass, Karl Forster. No other container plant does what ornamental grass does. Movement, sound, 4-season structure, and zero maintenance after the first year. Spring brings fresh green vertical structure back to containers. Summer develops the characteristic wheat-colored feathery plumes. Fall transitions to warm gold while seed heads feed birds actively. Winter provides standing architectural structure. The only container plant that looks intentional in January when everything else looks abandoned. Karl Forster feather reed grass stands narrow and upright at 4 to 5 feet, the most architectural container grass available, and winner of the Perennial Plant of the Year. Morning Light has fine silver-edged leaves with graceful arching form and pink plumes in fall. Blue fescue forms compact blue-gray mounds at 10 to 12 inches, perfect for smaller containers and mixed arrangements. Karl Forster is hardy in zones 4 through 9. Morning Light in zones 5 through 9. Blue fescue in zones 4 through 8. Cut ornamental grasses back to 4 to 6 inches in late February. That is the complete maintenance requirement for the entire year. One task, 5 minutes, then watch it return taller and fuller than the season before. Plant number 15, Coneflower, Echinacea native plant, medicinal history going back centuries, 4 months of blooms, seeds that feed birds through winter, virtually indestructible in containers. Coneflower does more work per square inch of container space than any other single plant on this list. Magnus Purple is the classic. Larger flower heads than the wild species, more upright habit, incredibly reliable. White Swan is pure white with orange centers and slightly more shade tolerant than purple varieties. Hot Paprika produces double orange-red flowers and represents the most dramatic modern variety available. Flowers run from June through September with minimal deadheading. Seed heads left standing through fall and winter are documented by the National Wildlife Federation as one of the top 5 bird-feeding native plants in America. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Self-seeds into surrounding containers, giving you free plants every season. In zones 7 through 9, bloom season can extend from late spring through early winter, giving you plants that earn their container space for the better part of the year. Plant number 16, Hellebore, Ice and Roses series. This plant blooms in snow. While every other plant in your containers is dormant, hellebores are producing flowers. It holds the longest single bloom period of any perennial available to American gardeners, December through April, 5 months. And the flowers come in white, pink, burgundy, yellow, and near black. Evergreen foliage provides 12-month container structure through thick, deeply divided, glossy leaves that look architectural year-round. Ice and Roses Red produces deep burgundy flowers from December through March. Wedding Party has pure white double flowers from January through April. Penny's Pink delivers soft pink with darker veining, one of the most elegant hellebore varieties in the American market. hardy in zones 4 through 9. In zones 4 and 5, place containers against a protected south-facing wall during the coldest weeks. In zones 7 through 9, bloom season stretches from November through April, giving you 5 full months of winter color. Most gardeners spend winter looking at empty containers. Hellebore gardeners spend winter looking at flowers. That difference costs exactly the same amount of effort. Plant number 17, Gaillardia. Blanket flower here is a plant that most American gardeners walk right past at the garden center because they do not know its name. That is a serious mistake. Gaillardia, commonly called blanket flower, is native to the North American prairies. It evolved in conditions of full blazing sun, poor rocky soil, and prolonged drought. It blooms from early summer through frost, producing daisy-like flowers in warm shades of red, orange, and yellow, with contrasting centers that look like something painted by hand. The flower show is so relentless that many gardeners assume they are looking at annuals. They are not. Arizona Sun is an award-winning variety that stays compact at 12 inches, perfect for containers, and blooms from June through October without pause. Mesa Bicolor produces yellow flowers with red centers continuously all season and grows to 18 inches. Goblin, also called Kobold, is one of the most container-appropriate varieties available, staying low and tight while delivering enormous color output. Hardy in zones 3 through 9 depending on variety. Arizona Sun reaches zone 3, meaning it handles winters in Minnesota, Montana, and northern New England without protection. The plant asks only for full sun and well-drained soil. Do not fertilize it. Rich soil produces weak, floppy growth and reduces flowering. Plant it in lean conditions, and it responds with hundreds of blooms. In fall, do not deadhead the final flush of flowers. Let the blooms go to seed. The golf ball-shaped seed heads that form are actively visited by goldfinches from October through February. Your blanket flower container becomes part of your garden's wildlife economy months after the last blooms have faded. One care note that most sources skip: blanket flower is technically a short-lived perennial in some humid climates. In zones 5 through 9 with good drainage, most varieties persist reliably for 3 to 5 years or longer. Divide plants every 2 to 3 years to keep them vigorous. If one declines after a few seasons, it has almost certainly self-seeded into adjacent containers. Your one plant becomes many without any effort from you. Plant number 18, Agastache, hummingbird mint. Most plants attract one type of pollinator. Agastache, also called hummingbird mint or Anisetum, attracts all of them simultaneously, hummingbirds. Bees, butterflies, beneficial wasps. The flower spikes act as a landing tower for every pollinator in your area, and the activity around a mature Agastache plant in full bloom is genuinely something you will stop to watch. The plant produces upright flower spikes, summer through fall, in colors ranging from purple to pink to coral to deep orange, depending on variety. The foliage is aromatic, a clean anise-like scent when brushed, and that same aromatic quality makes the plant completely deer-resistant and largely pest-free. Deer will walk around a container of Agastache to reach something else. Blue Fortune is one of the most popular varieties in American container gardens. Deep blue-purple flower spikes that bloom from July through September and self-clean without deadheading. Kudos Coral produces vivid orange coral flowers that attract hummingbirds from remarkable distances and stays compact at 12 to 16 inches, ideal for containers. Poquito Dark Blue is specifically bred for smaller containers and patio growing, forming a tidy mound with heavy blue flower production all summer. Hardy in zones 4 through 10, with varieties reaching zone 4 reliably. Once established, Agastache handles drought with the ease of a plant that evolved in dry western landscapes, because it did. Water it deeply once to establish, then step back. In zones 5 and above, cut it to 4 to 6 inches in early spring. New growth emerges quickly. Do not cut it back in fall. The standing stems provide winter structure and insulation for the crown during hard freezes. One thing almost no gardening content mentions about Agastache in containers: the dried flower spikes hold their structure beautifully through winter. A container of Agastache in January, with its upright russet stems still standing against frost, provides the kind of architectural interest most gardeners have to pay for with ornamental grasses. This plant gives it to you for free as a bonus after 5 months of continuous bloom. Plant number 19, Yarrow, Achillea yarrow was named after Achilles. According to ancient accounts, the Greek hero used it to treat the battlefield wounds of his soldiers. Whether or not you accept the legend, the practical reality of this plant is documented and extraordinary. Yarrow has been in continuous medicinal and ornamental use in human cultures for over 3,000 years. There is a reason it kept getting planted. It works. In containers, yarrow produces flat-topped flower clusters in yellow, white, red, pink, and copper that bloom from June through September. The feathery, finely divided gray-green foliage is aromatic and present from early spring, giving you container structure months before the flowers open. The cut flowers last 10 to 14 days in a vases, one of the longest vase lives of any perennial flower available to home gardeners. Dry them, and they last indefinitely, holding color for years. Moonshine is the benchmark container variety. Clear, sulfur yellow flowers on compact 18-inch plants that bloom continuously all summer and remain upright without staking. Paprika produces deep red flowers that fade to soft salmon as they age, giving you a color transition that makes the same plant look different in June than it does in August. Desert Eve terracotta delivers warm copper orange tones that photograph beautifully and complement almost any other container plant on this list, hardy in zones 3 through 9. Here is what makes yarrow exceptional for American container gardeners specifically. It is one of the very few perennials that handles both drought and clay-amended container soil without complaint. It thrives in lean, poor conditions the way lavender and sedum do. Do not fertilize it, do not overwater it, give it full sun and walk away. Cut the spent flower heads back to the nearest lateral bud when they fade. This triggers a second and sometimes third flush of blooms within 3 to 4 weeks. In fall, leave the final flush of seed heads standing for birds. In early spring, cut the whole plant back hard to 4 inches. It returns immediately, fuller and stronger than the season before. One more practical reality about yarrow in containers that most gardeners do not know until they experience it. Established yarrow repels aphids from surrounding containers. The aromatic compounds in the foliage act as a natural deterrent for soft-bodied insects. Position a container of yarrow near roses, petunias, or any other plant that typically draws aphid pressure and watch the difference. Plant number 20, Evergreen Sedum, Autumn Fire. The final plant on this list makes your containers look intentional and designed through all 4 seasons without any help from you. Spring, tight rosettes of fresh blue-green emerge clean and sculptural. Summer, growth fills the container and stems strengthen. Fall, flower heads transition from pink to deep copper red, the peak ornamental value of the entire year. Winter, dried seed heads and sturdy stems hold their structure through frost and snow, providing genuine architectural interest when nothing else does. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Completely drought-tolerant once established, containers can go weeks without water in winter with 0 damage. Never needs dividing. Gets more attractive and substantial every year without any intervention. Between hellebore and autumn fire sedum, you have winter containers that look professionally designed. Both plants got there by being almost completely ignored from October through March. The 3 secrets that determine everything we are not ending here. Because you can plant every single one of these 20 perennials and still fail if you do not know 3 specific things. These are the mistakes that kill more container plants than drought, cold, and neglect combined. Secret 1. Draining kills more plants than drought. The #1 killer of container perennials in America is not underwatering. It is overwatering combined with poor drainage. Roots sitting in waterlogged soil cannot access oxygen. They suffocate and rot, and by the time you see damage in the foliage, it is already too late. Every container needs a minimum of 3 half-inch drainage holes. Add a 2-inch layer of coarse gravel at the base before adding soil. Never place saucers under drought-tolerant perennials. Water should drain visibly within 15 to 20 seconds of application. If it pools longer than 30 seconds, your mix is too dense and your roots are already at risk. Secret 2. Container size determines. Everything a perennial in a 10-inch container needs water every 1 to 2 days in summer. The same plant in a 16-inch container needs water every 3 to 4 days. The same plant in a 24-inch container needs water once to twice weekly. Minimum size for every perennial on this list. 16 inches in diameter, Anything smaller defeats the entire purpose of low-maintenance gardening. In winter, small containers freeze solid. A perennial in a 10-inch pot in Zone 5 has almost no insulation between its roots and a hard freeze. The same plant in a 24-inch container has thermal mass that protects roots through temperatures that would kill them in a smaller pot. Container size is not just about growth. It is about winter survival. Secret 3, the soil mix that does half your work. Never use standard garden soil. Too heavy, poor drainage. Never use cheap potting mix, mostly bark, holds too much moisture. The correct recipe is 50% quality potting mix, 30% coarse perlite, and 20% compost. Drains well, holds enough moisture. Feed slowly through the season without synthetic fertilizer. Each spring, remove the top 2 inches and replace with fresh compost mixed with slow-release granular fertilizer. 10 minutes per container, once per year. That is the complete annual soil maintenance for every plant on this list. Here is what I want to say directly before this video ends. If you have spent too many summers replacing plants that were never going to make it, plants that looked beautiful in April and were finished by July, subscribe to Nature Green Discoveries right now. Every single week I put out content built specifically to make your garden easier, more beautiful, and more rewarding without asking more of your time. Free, always will be. Now tell me in the comments, which 3 plants from this list of 20 are you adding to your containers this season? And what state are you gardening in? Your zone matters, and I want to make sure the advice you act on actually fits your climate. If you found this video useful, share it with one person in your life who keeps spending money at the garden center every spring on plants that don't make it to fall. That share costs you nothing. For them, it could change everything. Hit like, hit subscribe. I will see you in the next one.